With MSO News Sports, I'm Rick Moore, and happy now to be joined once again by Gloucester Mayor for the second term, Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Looks like it was quite a time on Monday.
Thank you. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of planning over the last 6 weeks or so, but I think it went off basically without a hitch, and I'm glad it's over.
I'm sure. Um, when you have to prepare a state of the city address or an inaugural address or something like that, how do you go about doing that, Mr. Mayor? I mean, you don't have a lot of time to think stuff up. So how do you prepare something like that?
Well, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. So a friend of mine, Chad Konecki, who helped out on my last two campaigns, he is the actual author of the address. So I met with him a few weeks back, and we went over some of the things we want to highlight. And he's found a way over the last, I guess, 30 months, 30, yeah, that's about right, for the last 2.5 years since I first started running, to sort of take what's in my brain and put it on paper. He's found my voice. And so, he sends over a draft. I go over it, make some changes, additions, deletions, make sure everything's fact checked. And so that's how we put it together. Because, yeah, it is hard to do the day job and plan the event and to write a speech. But so thank you, Chad.
All right. I know John F. Kennedy speechwriters didn't get any credit, so you're doing a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because the astronaut, which a country, it's somebody out there wrote that.
That's right. And I don't think it was him. I forget. O'Donnell, I think was the guy's name. Anyway, I think maybe a quick look back on 2023, because it was a very special year for Gloucester. Certainly a lot of ceremonies with respect to the Gloucester 400 plus committee, but also infrastructure, beach changes, and all kinds of stuff. So maybe what comes to the top of your mind, and just a quick look back.
Well, obviously the 400th was the key for the year. I mean, starting with New Year's Eve in 22, right up through New Year's Eve just a few days ago, and there were events, probably 2 or 3 times a week. There was something going on, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work for the volunteers and the staff who were put together for the committee. But it was something we're not going to experience again to that level for another 100 years. So I was very excited, proud, honored to be mayor during this past year, this anniversary year, and I don't think I'll be here for the 500th. Hopefully the 425th, maybe the 450th. We'll see. But I just want to tip my hat and give a big thanks to Bruce Toby, Ruth Pino, and Bob Gillis, the tri-chairs, and Alger Zwart, the executive director, and obviously the big one for planning all the events, Izzy Pett. So thanks to all of them, we had a very fun-filled, busy year, and thank you to them.
I know one of the things you mentioned in your inaugural speech the other day was something that I learned during the Mayor's Forum back in September, was how things, as Bill Squillis put it, get kicked down the road. The can gets kicked down the road. And each mayor inherits the previous mayor's leftovers, if you will, for want of a better term. And how much of that did that take up in your first 2 years? Was it a year, 2 years? Is it something that's still ongoing?
It's definitely still ongoing. I mean, as I mentioned in maybe it was my interview with Ethan Foreman at the Times, that a lot of the stuff we worked on was either had been started in the previous administration, or was at least in the early stages of planning. And so the bulk of the last 24 months was wrapping up, kicking things off, but things that are the big one is the Vietnam Memorial. The plans had been drawn up, but that was about the extent of it. So we're looking forward to some new initiatives in this term, but we still have to wrap up all those things: the police station, the library, this project at City Hall, which was in the discussions stages before I got here. Since that fire, that was a figurative and literal wake-up call for us. We realized we have to get something going on that. So we've got a lot of stuff to see through to completion, and a lot of new things we need to kick off.
What's the status of the cleanup with respect to the fire?
The cleanup is complete. We've started to put the artwork back on the walls. The we're the ground zero of the fire, and what was our archives office has now been transformed into the purchasing suites, and we're good to go. Like so the artwork went up in time for the inauguration. The portrait gallery for the past mayors up on the balcony, and we have boxes and boxes of wrapped art that still needs to be put up on the other walls throughout the building.
Mhm. Okay. In terms of agenda this year, what are some of the priorities that you see in the next 12 months or 24 months?
Well, the big one is the completion of the comprehensive planning initiative, the new master plan. And I did mention that in the obviously in the inaugural speech. But if people want to get involved, there's still time. Go to the city's website, and you can find it right on the front page to get the latest information. But we want to hear from them, whether it's filling out the online survey, whether it's hosting a meeting in a box with your friends and neighbors. But we need the input. As I've said from day one, we can't have a few dozen people giving their ideas. This has to be thousands of people, because this will be the blueprint for at least the next decade for how our city is going to be run.
What about transition changes with respect to city government? Because you've been involved at school committee level, at city council level, and now at the mayoral level. And there are changes, albeit there weren't that many, of course, on city council. But what does that experience do, and how do you deal with that as mayor? What do you expect to have to deal with in terms of new school committee and new city council?
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is I know either worked with or know pretty much everybody who was elected to the school committee and the city council. The exception is Marjorie Grace, the new Ward 3 councilor. I've gotten to know over the last several weeks since the election. But I've known Jeremy McKean through Democratic meetings, and he's the new school committee member. And obviously, everybody else is returning to the council and to the school committee. So, except Dylan Benson, who's new Ward 2 city councilor. But I've known him for years. He actually worked in my 2015 campaign for mayor. So he's a really good, young, energetic guy. Works for Mayor Cahill in Beverly. So that's a plus for Ward 2, having somebody who's understands municipal government. And so I'm feeling pretty confident about what we have now in place for the 16 elected officials in the city. And but there's new leadership on the city council. Tony Gross is the new council president. I worked with Tony for obviously the last 2 years as a councilor, and we were on the school committee together. And I think the unanimous vote for him the other day is a good sign of things to come. Kathy Clancy is returning as the chair on the school committee. Bill Melvin, who just started his second term, is going to be our new vice chair. So yeah, I think we're in good hands all around.
I think the other thing that was noticeable also during the inauguration that we watched on 1623 was, and I did see the video of it, is the representation from the state. And I know that, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, of course, is well known throughout the area, longtime mayor of Salem, District Attorney Tucker, also another Salem representative, but also, Senator Bruce Tarr and people like that. And these people are not just they're not coming just to Gloucester, but they're always visible throughout the North Shore, and that has to be a good sign for city government to have that kind of relationship with the state.
Absolutely. Some people argued during the campaign that we don't need to be beholden to these people, and my argument was I think it's a plus to have good relationships with the elected and appointed officials upstream. I mean, the fact that the lieutenant governor Christian Hoystrat, her chief of staff, who's a Gloucester guy, he had reached out to 2 or 3 weeks ago to ask about the inauguration, and she was fortunately for me and us, she was able to fit into her schedule, and she was here and she spoke from the heart. And Senator Tarr and Rick Ferrante, they do so much for Gloucester, for Cape Ann in general. I don't know how Bruce does it. I think he now, with the changes that happened in the last district line changes, he's got 19 communities. That's a lot of ground to cover.
I
But
have a theory. I think Bruce has several clones because he's everywhere at once, and it's great to see. Well, Mr. Mayor, anything else you want to mention about priorities or about your first administration? Anything you want to, just sort of throw out there and let us know about?
Well, the one thing I'll reiterate, the first thing I said at my inaugural was I give a big thanks to the city staff. Everybody from the upper managers to the rank and file. at City Hall, Pond Road, police, fire, every building we have in the city, the staff we have in the schools, on the school administration side, and on the city side, that's what makes me look good, is because they're doing their job professionally and ably every single day of the week. And I think we're a very fortunate city to have that kind of dedicated staff.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you one more question. What what is a concern for you in this coming year? What is something that I don't know, I don't want to say keeps you up at night, but something that's a high priority that maybe we hadn't thought about or that you were
Mhm.
doing either short term or long term?
Well, there are two things, and they're sort of interconnected. The first one is we've talked about this continually since we first started talking when I became mayor, is the sewer treatment plant. That is going to be about a $200 million project. And we are seeking every possible avenue, looking down every street, lifting up every rock to find funding sources for that, because it can't go on the sewer rate because it would just basically put us out of business. So we are looking for grant opportunities, low interest, forgivable loans. So that's one that does keep me up at night. That is the poster child for the kicked can right there that goes back at least 4 decades. So, and again, not blaming my predecessors. It's just that the music stopped and I didn't have a chair to sit in. So, so that's one. And then obviously, I can't sugarcoat it. The governor's been pretty clear as a legislature. The economic outlook is pretty unknown. Who knows what the presidential race is going to bring us? But the revenues for the state are down from what were projected. Luckily, the millionaires tax, so-called millionaires tax, the online gambling tax, that those are coming in at a pretty good clip. But we'll see what the governor is proposing. We've been pretty fortunate with our local aid numbers over the last 2 cycles that I've been here. Hopefully, we don't see any cutbacks on those. But we've long before I was here, going back to Carolyn Kirk's days, the city budget's been pretty conservative. And so, and we've got a pretty good nest egg built up in our stabilization funds. But that's the one that I'm concerned about, is to see what actually comes out of the state when they've got the projections and the actuals for revenues.